Welcome to the Spiritus Society of Virginia. On this beautiful May day, we welcome all. And even Virginia and Gabe. We start each meeting, as most of you know, with a reading. And this one's coming from Living Spring, chapter 49, entitled Fraternal Union. We read this last week, and the Spirits decided we needed to hear it again. From Paul to the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 3. Seek to maintain the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Thousands of ways are shown to you every time you set your eyes on the distant goal ahead. There are millions of pathways bordering yours. Do not forget the road that you own and go forward without fear. You would probably like for all other roads to be subordinate to yours, and you see unity as being all travelers gravitating around your steps. But join others without expecting them to join you. Search for what is useful and beautiful, holy and sublime, and press on. The headspring seeks the stream seeks the river, and the river connects to the sea. Let us not forget that spiritual unity is the basic work of peace. Do you see those who devote themselves to children? Do you see a friend who dedicates themselves to helping the sick? Do you see the care of those who have made themselves friends of the elderly and the young? Do you see the effort of those who have dedicated themselves to the improvement of the soil or to the training of animals? Do you appreciate the work of those who preach to spread the good? Honor all of them with your gesture of sympathy and serenity, convinced that only the roots of understanding can uphold the tree of fraternity and unity, which we all want to be robust and fruitful. Do not think that others see life the way you see it. Evolution is an infinite stairway. Each one beholds the landscape according to the step on which he or she is standing. Approach all workers of the good and offer them the best you can, and they will answer with what is best of themselves. War is always the poisonous fruit of violence. The sterile argument is a result of imposition. Fraternal unity is a sublime dream of the human soul. Nevertheless, it will not be achieved unless we respect one another, cultivating harmony in the environment in which we are called to serve. It is only by making every effort to maintain the unity of spirit through the bond of peace that we will achieve such realization.
All right, friends. Let us then unite our thoughts and feelings in prayer. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Carlos. Let us close our eyes if you want it. And feel our connection with God, dear Mother, Father God. We exist because you created us and sustain us. We reincarnated, for you are so merciful, giving us always another opportunity. We need to feel our connection with you to stay strong, to grow beyond our current limitations. With you, we feel the presence of the Spirit messengers, the guides and the protecting spirits who devotedly care for each one of us in two realms. We pray for those who are in the spiritual hospital connected to the Spirit Society of Virginia. We pray for the city they are building, our Hope City. We pray that we are useful in our own fulfillment of the duties you have assigned to us, for us. Forgive us for the times in which we become negligent, putting aside the very fulfillment of the tasks you kindly gave us as pathway for our own redemption. Redemption in love, in the construction of the good on earth. We pray for everybody who has their names in the book of prayer. Visualizing healing baskets being delivered to each one of them, whether incarnated or discarnated. May they feel the energy medicine soothing their minds, strengthening their bodies, calming ourselves at each breath. And may this therapeutic session be an opportunity for us to recharge. And also for our families to feel stronger. Cells of light in the world, spreading hope, courage, joy of living wherever we are. With much gratitude for being here once again, for you allowing us to continue in this life. We thank you. With your permission to begin our service, feeling your protection, may we be guided, all of us, in your thoughts and feelings, words and actions, as we proceed. And so be it. Right, our children will enjoy lessons on our solar. As for our preteens. So for those who are with us, the children and the teens are learning about no solar. I don't know of any program on earth, even in Portuguese, for children to learn no solar by Andre Luiz, even in English. So I would say the spirit side of Virginia, they are very, let's say, progressive. They are bringing to us a new method to teach them what we can no longer postpone. Because the new generation needs to understand that this life is not all about the physical part of it. We can no longer wait for them to become teens, because then we don't know where they're going to go. So we needed to grab them while they're here and share what we have learned. Today, we are going to be studying, talking about the beauty of learning Andre Luiz books. In our bookstore, we have several of these books, and we would recommend for people to read. If you don't want to buy the paper, you have the Kindle form, like I do too. And then, boom, we have the books right here. We can read anywhere we are. So here we are today to learn about a topic that is very, very Very important. It's about defense against evil. Do we need to defend ourselves against evil? We do, right? If we look at our physical body, we have an immune system. That's a sign that we are physically prepared to protect ourselves. Defense is not attack. There's a big difference between attacking and defending. Huge difference. But defense is very important. It's part of the law of preservation. So let's talk about what kind of defense is this and where is evil, right? Karen and I are teaming up to share a specific chapter in this book, The Messengers. Why do these books, are they available to us? Why did the governance of the earth allowed us to receive such information? Because it makes sense to us that God is so merciful that he's going to send knowledge about life, not only about the physical aspect of life, but the spiritual part of us. And Chico Xavier became the instrument for such purpose. So here we have this book, chapter 20, titled Defense Against Evil. We're going to begin from the very end of the chapter when Andre Luiz and others are talking, and they receive this instruction from one of the instructors there. They say that the popular tradition in India, it's funny because we're in Northern Virginia, and it's like populated, I think India moved to Northern Virginia, right? Such a high-tech part of the world, and we are so blessed that we have so many people from India here. They are a big part of spirituality on earth. In the spiritual traditions of the earth, India became one of the main vessels of it. And talking about spiritual traditions, see how Spiritism is so universal? It don't matter which religion we are, which or no religion, Spiritism encompasses everything. So the instructor tells us about a popular story in India where, and I'll read a few excerpts just so we see how he talks to us. Once upon a time, there was a poisonous serpent, snake, in the fields. No one dared to pass by, fearing that, of course, the snake would strike them. But then a holy man in God's service intentionally passed by the snake, trusting more in God than in himself. The snake struck at him defiantly. But he was fine and had a serene look at his sister, says the story. And he says, my sister, looking at the snake. The law says that we are not to harm anyone. So the snake was ashamed. The wise man continued his way. And the serpent changed completely. No longer he was striking at anybody. He was actually allowing people to pass by, and some people actually started hitting on the snake. Right? One day, the holy man came back, decided to visit the snake. He was surprised to see the shape she was in. And as they say that the serpent told him her bitter tale, that she wanted to be good, that she wanted to be kind and loving, but people persecuted and stoned her. The wise man thought for a minute and answered, but my sister, you've been mistaken. You've been mistaken. I advised you not to bite anyone, not to chase and kill anyone. But I did not tell you to stop frightening bad people. Don't attack the children of God, our brothers and sisters on the same pathway of life, but do defend your part in the work of the Lord. Neither bite nor harm, but keep the wicked ones away. Hiss and show them your thanks. Now we're scratching our heads. Like, what does that mean? I can still fight. I can still kick and scream. What does it mean for our daily lives? So then we go back to the beginning of the chapter, where Andre Luiz friends are talking to Alfredo, the instructor. And at some point, they were asking why the place where they were in was filled with walls and defense against evil. And then the instructor said, as long as the universal love does not prevail, it is imperative that the reign of justice persists. So here we are, balance of justice and love. What is the fine line? Well, there's no fine line because it's one law, just two sides of the same coin. When love does not prevail, justice must secure it. Our laws, our rules for parents and educators, it's hard. When do we know how to secure the harmony of the family, the health of the child, without harming it, but preserving it? We need rules. Even when we are babies. I remember when Virginia was a baby, just born. And of course, babies are just born and they wanna be nursed. And I remember talking by email with Divaldo Franco, and he said, do not let her do this. Discipline her from the get-go. Only allow her to be nursed every 3 hours. She needs to learn discipline. She was just a baby, newborn. I was like, oh my gosh, I was gonna happen. Of course, a pacifier helps. It pacifies. So here you go, pacify yourself. And then we made it. We succeeded. But that was a lesson for us. Like discipline. In a world that is so undisciplined. Our world nowadays, as you can see, especially after the pandemic, we feel so victimized that we want to eat it all, do it all, because we feel like we lost 2 years of our lives. There are people who say that. I lost 2 years of my life. There are people who lost their lives. And we're feeling that we lost something. See how childish we are. So then he continues by explaining to us that we must defend the work of the good against the unwarranted attacks. A family is a work of the good. We think only spiritist centers, churches. No. A family is a work of the good. We need to protect each family because we're in a world that is trying to destroy it with every social media. And this is not drama, it's a reality. Always pushing us to casual sex. I I mentioned some Netflix shows because Mentor Joseph says, Vanessa, if you keep reading spiritist books all day long, you won't be able to talk to people. So I say, well, what do I do besides living with people? Because, we're restricted during the pandemic. It says, watch Netflix and you'll see how the world is. So yesterday, after we were exposed a little bit with the world in DC, the McPherson Square, we sat down a bit to watch a program, just for a little bit, because it was intense. Bling Empire, season 2. That's a shock. Going from McPherson Square to Bling Empire, it was like, oh, Mamma Mia. Can't believe it. People closing jewelry stores and going there at 5 a.m. to design their own jewelry. Or inviting friends for dinner or lunch and saying they are living in Los Angeles and they say, let's have lunch like in San Francisco or Canada. Let's just take our plane and go there. It's like from the McPherson Square to the Bling Empire. It's like completely different worlds, but 2 worlds that are so alike at the same time. Today we're going to understand why they are so alike and where we are in all of this, because we belong to this. Our children, our teens, our colleagues at work, our families are watching this and much more. Because now whatever is on TV here is in TV everywhere in the world. I was recently in Brazil and people were watching programs that we have here that I don't even know. Twin sisters talking about their fashion show. Children, men who are mama's boys and they have, what kind of real reality shows. And this is the world. And there is Virginia watching a little bit with us in Brazil, and I'm like, Mom, to my mom, I don't think this is gonna make us any happier watching these programs, because what happens when we watch these programs without noticing what we're doing? Because if we're studying, it's one thing. If we're just casually watching, we are absorbing all of those images, and they are piling up in our mental field. And at the end of the day, we're reprogramming our minds to be what we're watching. So we have to select what we are watching. Not only the children, but the adults too. Because if we're being coached by what we're watching TV or on the phone, whatever it is, screen time, it's going to be hard to be a good person. And that's one of the attacks of evil. But where is this evil coming from? So, Andre Luiz' friend Vicente is astounded. He's like, my God, why do criminal minds, unwise minds, deliberately organize themselves for evil purposes? Because that exists on earth. Maybe you want a good life. I want a good life. Maybe we are planning on something else. But there are people who wake up thinking of crimes, of misdeeds, things that are even allowed on earth, but it's criminal. Why? Don't they know that the entire universe, the universal treasure, belongs to God, the divine majesty? Don't they recognize God's sovereign power? I know people who are criminals, they say they believe in God. They say, I believe in God, I pray to God. But they don't change. They keep on planning crimes. And they're wonderful people. But they keep on watching programs of crimes. They keep on planning their outings with friends, lots of drugs and alcohol, and much more than that. So, what does the instructor answer here? You have a lot to share with us. Please share. Share, because now we're puzzled. Thank you, Carol.
So the question, friends, is why? Why is it that we are stubborn in evil? Lockley Andre Luiz brings us the answer. Yes. The mentor, while talking to Andre Luiz, explains to us that there are cooperatives for evil in the spiritual realms connected to the earth. And how do they operate? According to the mentor, they have an economic system of a feudalistic nature, meaning there are lords of the evil cooperatives and the quote-unquote workers that respond to them. In another book by Andre Luiz named Liberation, we meet Gregorio, whose portrait you see on the screen right now. And Gregorio considers himself to be the lord of that evil empire. Vanessa spoke of the Bling Empire, and Gregorio considered himself to be the lord of the evil empire. And he trained spirits to spread slander, to spread dissension, to spread destruction, to drive families apart. So Gregorio was the quote-unquote boss of a feudalistic organization. He considered himself to be the lord. And how do these organizations operate? Those who consider themselves to be the lords of evil operate through tyrannical vanity. How about ourselves? Do we find a trait in us now that we know that there is such a trait very prevalent in the lower zones? Do we find this trait in ourselves? How about when we go home and we feel like we are the lords of that empire, where everyone in our home has to respond to us, where we have to have the last word, where we draw the laws, and those who disobey us pay a price. There's a difference between discipline and tyrannical vanity, where we impose our will upon others. So this is a good time for us to examine ourselves to see where we are. What is another trait of the cooperatives of evil and the lords of evil in the lower zone? They don't, quote unquote, dominate our minds by the diffusion of lies. For example, in the Bling Empire that Vanessa just mentioned, we see this very present because those who are millionaires or billionaires? Billionaires, thank you, Vanessa. Those who are billionaires believe that they lack if they don't have 3 airplanes to fly by on a moment's notice. If they don't have a crew of 20 people to serve them, if their favorite dish is not there present, they feel as though their life has ended. Right? Mm-hmm. We saw an episode ourselves where one of the women in the Bling Empire was holding a dinner party, and she noticed that another friend had the same necklace as hers. She felt like she was mortally, quote unquote, mortally wounded. And she stopped talking to that woman and isolated her from the other tables, the other friends sitting at the table, and stopped talking to that person. So she bought into the lies that if she doesn't have 3 airplanes, a crew of 30 people serving her, and she's the only one wearing the diamond necklace, she's not good enough. Are we this way? Is the question that the mentors ask all of us, including ourselves here, Vanessa and myself. Are we like this? Do we believe that if we don't have a car, X, Y, and Z, if we don't have a house that looks a certain way, if we don't have a family that is in a certain manner, do we lack? Is God not good to us? Do we fight with God? Do we enter in a war with God? If we do, we are connecting to the evil empire, buying into the diffusion of lies. And why is it that we buy in both realms to the diffusion of lies? Because we weaken ourselves through negligence. We all have a reincarnatory plan that is designed to bring us closer to God. But do we choose God on a daily basis? Most likely we fulfill our to-do list rather than God's. We watched another show on Netflix called Married at First Sight, and we were amazed to see that the women who were getting married believed that they were going to find a quote-unquote Prince Charming, and that person would be absolutely perfect, and the wedding would work because the person would serve them. Of course that didn't happen, because that isn't God's plan for any of us on the earth. So through their own negligence and buying into lies and fantasies that they themselves created, they weakened themselves. And every day they would numb themselves through alcohol and other drugs, and then run away from the opportunity to build a relationship. And they had a million justifications. But if we go to the bottom of it, it was because of their own negligence, their own willingness to run away from the truth. And because of that, when we choose to run away from the truth, to weaken our own will by buying into socially approved fantasies, we become captive of careless spirits. Because, for example, when we choose to drink every day, as they did in the show Married at First Sight, and when we choose to prioritize only what's good for us, there's a name for this, and this is called selfishness. When we focus on the self, we become captive to other spirits, incarnate and discarnate, who also think and feel and behave the same way. So much so that in the show Married at First Sight, most women thought the same way. They said, we want a divorce and we are not happy. Why? Because he, the husband, is not doing what we want. We expected a perfect marriage, they say. But they are not doing what we want. So they are being tyrannical in terms of their vanity, expecting others to be the slave of their own will. And in doing so, they're becoming captive to their own selfishness. And because we live in two worlds, they are connecting to other spirits who are also selfish, creating a vicious cycle. This is why it's dangerous to be selfish. The spirits who are selfish inspire us to be undisciplined. Vanessa was speaking of discipline with baby Virginia. This is what the good spirits will do. They will always inspire us to discipline ourselves. But in the show Bling Empire and Married at First Sight, we see zero discipline. We see the people waking up and going to sleep at their whim, doing whatever they want, fulfilling their own needs at all times at the cost of everybody else. There was a person there in the show that already was thinking of her ex-boyfriend on the day of the wedding. That in and of itself was a red flag. But she wasn't good at disciplining herself, disciplining her own will, and being honest with herself first. So what did she do? She went through with the wedding only because she felt she deserved a fairy tale wedding. And if she walked away, she didn't know if she was ever going to have a fairy tale wedding. And according to her timeline, she needed to have a fairy tale wedding or else. So because she didn't discipline her own will, she prioritized her fairy tale wedding, involved someone else in it, made that other person suffer. And in the reunion of the show, right, Vanessa, she was proud of it, that she went through with her fantasy. This is undisciplined passion, when we do whatever we want at whatever cost. We sometimes say, oh, I'm this way. I was born this way. I will die this way. If you like me, good for you. If you don't, you're out. This is undisciplined passions. When we are so passionate about ourselves that we only see ourselves, and that's it. So now that we know how the cooperatives of evil operate, the characteristics of the people who are part of those cooperatives, we are being invited to ask ourselves if we are opening ourselves up to connect to them, and to think of the question that Vicente and Andre Luiz asked the mentor. They asked, why do the spirits deliberately organize themselves for evil purposes? Why? If they know that God is supreme, why? The mentors have given us all an answer. First, they want to dominate rather than dominate themselves. All of us in this room incarnate or reincarnate to dominate ourselves. We bring tendencies from the past, and we reincarnate in such conditions that God grants us the opportunity to tame our tendencies, to direct them in a different way. How do we know if we are dominating ourselves? If when we wake up every day, our to-do list, the famous to-do list, includes helping others, making others happy. If we spend 24 hours thinking about making ourselves happy, we are reinforcing selfishness and vanity, reinforcing our tendencies, and thus not dominating the very, very parts of ourselves that are here to be recycled. How do we recycle these parts of ourselves? By learning the new. Doing the good is new on the earth. And we are being invited to embrace this new so we can dominate ourselves. Otherwise, we will be likely to spend 24 hours thinking of ourselves and then connect to the dominance of cruel spirits that also think of themselves all the time. And if we think of ourselves all the time, this is why selfishness is an illness of the soul, and it's a dangerous place to find ourselves. If we choose to be selfish, then what happens? We make demands instead of giving of ourselves. So in the shows that we watched on Netflix, we see the women and the men saying, oh, we wanted our partner to look a certain way, to speak a certain way, to dress a certain way. We want them to be, forgive us for laughing, but we remember one person that had a particular height in mind. She said her partner needs to be such and such height or else. And she posted on Instagram saying, I will be single forever because I cannot find someone of such and such height. Forgive us for laughing. But this is an example of someone who makes demands instead of giving. And she makes demands public on Instagram. And she has thousands of followers, meaning there are thousands of people who applaud what she's doing, who agree with us. Yes, you have to have a partner that is such and such height, that looks this way, whose hair is this way, so and so. So we see that sadly on the earth, especially if we see Netflix, we notice that society applauds those who make more demands than give. And when we make more demands, we dwell between our fantasy and reality. The reality is that the height of our partner is not going to interfere with how happy we might find ourselves. Right, friends? But sometimes we dwell in this fantasy, and society applauds this fantasy. On Netflix, hundreds of people watch the show and comment, yes, we agree with her. She needs to be very specific on what she wants. She, like many others, is living in a fantasy world, thinking that if she satiates her needs, her marriage will be sustained. But we forget that we got married to give of ourselves, that we build a family to give of ourselves. This is why Vanessa mentioned that the family nowadays is being destroyed, because society is training our teens and children at large to demand rather than to give. And as long as they demand, they live in a fantasy, because that's not what God created the world for. And they will acquire more and more pain, because life will call them out of love. Like the women that married at first sight, or almost all the couples divorced. Of course, because if we go into a relationship thinking of someone's height as a priority, we are bound to fail. So the question for us is, are we blinded by our own fantasy? Because if we are, life will call us on Netflix and beyond. And the spirits who deliberately choose to be selfish and vain and tyrannical like we are, sometimes Netflix is there to show it. They have denser perispirits. When we choose our partner based on their height, we are acting out of vanity and selfishness. And we are therefore becoming more materialized. To become materialistic doesn't have to do necessarily with how much money we have in our bank account, but it has to do with the choices that we make on a daily basis. If we prioritize the good of others, then we become lighter and lighter and more connected to the spirits in the higher realms, to the point where our feet are here on the ground, but our minds and hearts are flying high. On the other hand, if we constantly think of ourselves all day long, then we are becoming denser and denser and denser and denser, as you see in the portrait there. How do we know then? What is our thermometer? Do we have a thermometer? We know that there is a thermometer right there by the door, and we are used to that one. But now we are speaking of a soul thermometer. We know the physical one, and everybody here is diligent at using it. COVID trained us. But how about a soul thermometer? Do we have a soul thermometer to show us if we are in the quote unquote right direction in terms of our reincarnatory plan? How do we know if we are doing the good or not? Good question, right? The answer, friends, that we learn from the good spirits, not that we know, we are studying it ourselves together with everyone here. The answer is we know if the action that we are choosing to take benefits not only ourselves, but someone else as well. This is our thermometer. So when we wake up every day, let us think about whether the actions that we are taking are benefiting others in addition to ourselves. Because if they benefit only us, we are in trouble. And now, how do we train ourselves to stay on track? Our master has given us the answer. How do we defend ourselves against the evil that is inside of us from habits that we brought from many lives? By watching and praying as our master has taught us. This is how we re-educate ourselves and our own tendencies. Now we pass the word back to Vanessa, so we continue learning about how to defend ourselves against evil.
The pictures that Correa was showing was from a project named Projeto Imagem from Brazil. It's from the book Liberation. And it's important for us when, I know these are not pleasant images, but they are drawings that come from the scenes that are described in the book Liberation by Andre Luiz, another book. Why it's important to emphasize this, especially this part that Correa was talking about, the air spirits. We have a spiritual body. If I wake up every day and I only think of material things, my spiritual body will be denser. The people who look at themselves in the mirror and only see wrinkles, and they are quickly scheduling Botox treatments because they don't feel they are going to be happy if they look at themselves that way. We're like, how do we look like actually in the spiritual realm when we are like this, so vain, so shallow? When we only think at the brands of the clothes we use. And in this area where we live, like Northern Virginia, such a wealthy area, very different from majority of the world. We're talking about less than 1% of the population have what we have here in Northern Virginia. Much less than 1%. We live in a part of the world that is very different from the rest of the world in so many ways. But we can't believe that this is reality. And that we need to fit in order to survive. Because at the end of the day, we're going to miss our reincarnation. If we wait for the applause of the world, for us to succeed, we may lose our souls. We may lose our souls. What is important? What is everlasting? Seeing baby Lucy here reminds me when Virginia was her age, and I was in the middle of the day during the week at a Costco. And this woman, older than me, of course, she came by and she said, "Oh, I miss those days, and I regret I didn't spend much time with my children. I regret that I made the choice to work instead of being with them." And I said to her, "I'm sorry, because that regret I'll never have. Never. I know it's hard to put our careers aside. It's very hard to depend on somebody else when you're independent. It's very hard. But it's a choice of love. And that's where families begin to win or to lose with mothers. We are supposed to sacrifice ourselves more than anybody else. Why? That's the design of God. God created us to be mothers. And that's how it is. But that's where society wins or loses. It begins with a woman and the mother. And when we don't have our children with us, but we are at work, especially when we are taking care of other people's children, that's also when we are asked to sacrifice ourselves. To pay more attention at the students, to really care. When we are working in the healthcare field, when we really care. When we put our empathy first. Because to be altruistic, which is a characteristic of superior spirits, we need to be empathetic. And that's where we do it. Yesterday, somebody said in our service to somebody, said, "I don't think we should be doing this. Because by helping these beggars or homeless, we're just sustaining their misery." A woman said that. And then we said, where is her heart? Where is her heart? She's heartless. Because she doesn't see that these people ended up here because very likely they had heartless women in their lives. I mean, I remember a family member, a relative, who once told me in Brazil about a time in which a man came home, a group of robbers came home, kept everybody hostage, and was brutally assaulting this woman, bumping her head on the wall and saying, "You look like my mom." And then he was kicking her. He was beating her head against the wall, enraged with a mother that no longer was there but was inside of him, and he was dwelling against the mother. He couldn't forgive. But we can only imagine what he went through. And we can imagine what she went through too. Because these heartless women were not treated right either. That's why we need to support mothers. We need to support women so they can fulfill their essential mission. Men are important, of course, but the main mission of bringing new human beings to life comes through a woman. We need to support, we need to care, to give what they need so they are in good shape to fulfill their mission. Nowadays, our society is fighting for a crazy right to kill a baby, unborn baby. And people say, "Vanessa, last Friday, a woman told me, do you want your daughter, somebody to tell her what to do with her body?" I said, "It's not about that. It's about killing a defenseless life. Abortion is a crime, period. Even if humans say it's not, in God's laws it is. And that's not because we are orthodox. It just makes sense. As a scientist, I know there's life there. Who doesn't remember when you go and do your first ultrasound and you hear the heartbeat? It's there. How can you kill it? There are consequences. The consequences come in many lives. I told this story before, but we are going to repeat. True account of a woman who came to the medium Chico Xavier in Brazil asking for help because her daughter got married to a man that wasn't good. She said, "Chico, my daughter's so good, but she got married to a man. She doesn't deserve him." Why? It's valid to ask these questions to the right people. In her case, she went to the right person. And then Chico didn't know the answer, so he asked Emmanuel, and Emmanuel said, 2 lives ago, that man was supposed to be her son. She committed abortion. The next life, he comes to be her son. At least she gives birth, but she abandons him. This life, he comes as the son-in-law. So it's like saying, you're not going to accept him any other way, so here he comes through the other door. So our relatives, our mothers-in-law, sons-in-law, everybody, are people who belong to our lives. Don't think they are aggregates. Brothers-in-law. If we're truly Christians, we're never going to say these people are aggregates. No, they are family. And probably the family we didn't want. The family we despised. The family we neglected. The family we abandoned. How do we defend ourselves against this evil in us? By allowing ourselves to be what God created us for. So when Jesus says watch, he's saying watch the divine in you. Believe in it. Give way to it. Seek the good. And pray, visualizing that good, feeling that good, and molding that good, as Emmanuel says in the book Salt and Life. Be his in our thoughts, visualizing the good in us, the good in them, the good in everyone. We're going to stop. We're going to have a minute for a question or two, if there is any, before the passes, because the topic is so extensive, right? Is there anybody who would like to say something, John?
Maybe wash away the desire for outer appearances and focus instead on attracting love and care.
Okay. Can you please just repeat it so people can see it?
Maybe wash away our desires concerning outward appearances and focus instead on attracting a loving and caring personality.
Nasminadas. Right? So, anybody has a question or two? Because I know the topic is so vivid for us, right? Any question or another comment? So, this main chapter is worthwhile reading or rereading. It's chapter 20 of the book, The Messengers. The book Liberation is also phenomenal to teach us about the ins and outs of life. Let us keep this in our minds as we move to the passages, okay, friends? Let us now go to this passage. Though we are not yet offering 101, we will be back to that soon. The good spirits are. They don't need a mask. They know what we need, why we were here studying. They were already operating on us. So now we just go to the next level where we're going to absorb more the remedies that we need. So sit down at a comfortable position, uncross your arms and legs, and open your hands to receive in your hearts and your minds. We're going to dim the lights so we can move to the next moment.
Welcome to the Virtual Passes Room. Emmanuel, the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier, once stated that thought is life. Thus, we can create the healing mental state right here and now. In preparation for the virtual passes, we would kindly recommend the following. Be certain that you have a real need to receive passes. Do not use the room simply out of curiosity. Casual visits to the room will negate its future benefits when needed. When using the room, have gratitude and show respect as you would when visiting a physical spiritist center. During the passes, silently evoke God's protection as well as Jesus. Also pray to your guardian angel. Concentrate on positive thoughts, thereby avoiding negative ones. Breathe deeply, slowly, calmly, and confidently. Always be ready to pray. Let us begin this passes session by praying as our guide and model, Jesus Christ, has taught us with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now, let us feel that small points of suffering, bitterness, sadness, anger, deception, disappear from your mind to not return. Like aged leaves that are shed from trees, let go of those feelings that no longer serve you. And gently, but most assuredly, discard them. Let the wind of life carry them so far away that they are unable to return and recreate their negative link. Little by little, your emotional tree sheds its negative feelings, becoming clean and ready for its renovation. Without the weight of those dead leaves, you feel lighter and are able to feel the gentle water of life now abundantly falling onto your physical body, spiritual body, and soul. This water cleans, disinfects, purifies, deconstructs, and tones all the cells of your body. Nothing can escape its renewing action. At the same time it is cleaning and moisturizing your body, this crystalline liquid satiates your spirit, eliminating affliction, anxiety, and unrest. Now within your heart resides a sense of calmness, cleanness, and well-being. Then the light of God emerges to warm and snuggle you, while caring rays penetrate your whole body and tenderly embrace you like a maternal hug, which brings comfort and safety to your heart. At this moment, great love warms your heart and removes the coldness resulting from any affliction. Now, your mind contains only feelings of joy and confidence. You are at peace and enveloped by a protective warmth. The heart of life offers you perfumed flowers. Then, with a grateful and happy soul, you gather their colorful petals that penetrate your whole being, restoring feelings and emotions of happiness, hope, faith, courage, and determination, helping you to regain the willingness to live. In addition to the perfume and color, nature also shares with you the best it has to offer, an infinite capacity for restoring its sublime beauty, even when struck by evil that appears to enact its end. Divine hands full of light gently overflow and spill over you like a golden waterfall of unspeakable and unknown essence. Little by little, your soul is impregnated with sweet happiness, allowing an inner renewal of the most noble and elevated purposes, that of progress and accomplishment. Showered by this sublime power, you deeply surrender to the donor of light, absorbing energy that now gives your life a new and blessed impulse. You called me, and here I am. What do you want from me today? What do you need? Ask, my son. Ask, my daughter. I am here to help. Now, ask your special request to Jesus, enumerating the problems and difficulties that afflict you. I listen to your request with love and attention. Now I count on your faith and trust in me to solve your problems. Go in peace. I am watching over you, and I will not lose sight of you. Believe in God and also believe in me. I will be with you every day until the end. Be happy. Many blessings.
So now our dear John the Rose is going to distribute the water. Let us take it with intention. Drink it, bring it home. For those who are with us over the internet, a big hug to you. Thank you, Slavik, Katya, Thiago, Jessine, Servina. If you have any question, write to us at cardiacradio@gmail.com. We wish you a lovely day. Till next time.